double, double, talk that trouble. Hex offenders in your bubble. Christian cackling, Shannon got receipts. Mean queen sweeping up the dead beats. Black nails, big laugh, side eye, deep cut. Name in the jar if you acting like a put. Circle cast tight, mic in the middle. One wrong move, you a roast, not a riddle. They stir, they still, they drag, they drag. Whole damn flock in a toe tag bag. Offenders, yeah, they came to fry your vibe. From the broom to the group chat live. Hex offenders, if you fake, better duck and dive. Hot tea pouring can't survive. Hex offenders. Hex offenders. Hex offenders. They like that candle, talk that smack. Turn your soft flex straight into a clap back. Which tips hit list, laugh till they cry. Sweet on the real ones, cursed if you lie. Cauldron on boil, that gossip steam. Every bad ex get tossed in the cream. You did dirt, better hope they forget. Or end up headline of the episode's hex offenders. Yeah, they came to fry your vibe. From the broom to the group chat live. Hex offenders, if you fake, better duck and dive. Hot tea pouring can survive. Offenders. Hex offenders. Hex offenders.
Good evening, everybody. Shannon, are you actually there? She looks like she's in a Motel 6. Where are you?
I'm actually in a tiny home.
Why are you in a tiny home?
Because I'm in Utah and I'm visiting some of my other businesses that I distribute to and taking care of some business out here.
Yeah. I'm just loving those curtains. Well, sorry for being late. Miss Thing over there forgot what time zone she was in.
Well, I thought you were in New Orleans.
No.
See, I
Even
thought
if I was in New Orleans, then my time would have been 8 o'clock, but it's 9 o'clock here.
that's why I said, that's why I thought I had more time because for some reason I thought you and Brian had flew back.
No, Brian flew back,
Oh,
but then it's 8 o'clock there, so it's 6 and 1/2 dozen of the other.
yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying. I thought I had another hour because I thought you were on New Orleans time.
So yeah, it is a bit of a crazy episode. You know, we always try to have this funny opening thumbnail, and you know, it was hard to pick one. You know what I mean? Because we, you know, there were different directions you could go. And let me see why can I not see my creations? You know, this was the one that we settled on. Let me see. The hell can I do that? Why is it that it so of course it doesn't, like, I love that it doesn't allow WebPs, which is like such a common thing here. Apparently that's not going to work either. Okay. Well, I guess I can't show them to you. Because this stupid thing doesn't, like, I wonder if it has a save. No, it's, yeah, no, well, that ain't going to work. Oh, it does when, okay. I see. So this was the one that won. So, I mean, you don't want to make light of such a terrible situation, but it's like, you know, what do? You know what I mean? And then, you know, we're talking about a very serious topic on, you know, sexual predators in the craft, you know, and then we have, you know, one of the ones that didn't make it. Yeah. I had to show it, Shannon, as horrible as it is. It really is terrible, really offensive. Um, but I mean, it's one of those situations. It's like, well, okay, how do you combine a snarky, humorous show with such a challenging, image sort of thing? This one was another favorite here. Show us on the doll. So, this is a big sort of thing going on, because I don't know, we're all in our own little caves, aren't we? You know what I mean? We're all in our own little caves, and we have our own little social bubble that, I thankfully haven't had to contend with having a child molester in a coven that I was part of or led at one point in time. I've never had to face that. Yeah, we've had drunk drivers or, other sort of things, never a murderer, none of those yet. And we do have a problem in this community, and it's bigger, I think, than the sexual predators. I think our single greatest problem we have in the magical community, and frankly in society worldwide, is our sense of selective outrage that I had to fight this week to get people to take the fact that there was a magical shop in Florida, Raven's Oasis, that had hired in some capacity, presumably as a contractor, a person who was convicted of sexual assault and corruption of a minor, which apparently are misdemeanors in Pennsylvania, but this person had pleaded down from felonies of unlawful sexual assault of a minor and endangering of minors. Now, I'm not sure why indecent assault of a minor is not also a felony. I guess Pennsylvania's got weird laws, but, I'm literally getting dinged out there by the people who are involved in it. Like this, I love this. Like Nutless Wonder and his wife, Hello Karen, are going on about me virtue signaling that I would never harm children, and they claim I harmed their child, and it's just a lie. I've never harmed children. I never would harm children. It's a lie. And but you've got all these people jumping on their bandwagon, talking about something that happened 24 years ago. Like, I do have a misdemeanor on my record from 24 years ago, and they'll never let you forget it. And I had Lori Bruno falsely accuse me of making phone calls and got a restraining order, which is not a that's not a conviction. It doesn't mean anything. It just means a judge looked at a little old lady and figured I must be the guilty party. And because my lawyer was sick, I didn't testify, which I should have. That was my great mistake. But she was up there saying that she makes Mount Etna explode with her mind, and that her family is responsible for the eruptions of Mount Etna. On the witness stand, it's the most active volcano in Europe. It's sort of like taking credit for the rain. I thought, I got to have this in the bag. But I didn't. And so the next year I challenged it with an army of witnesses, and I utterly decimated her. But it was without an army of, media. There was no media there to exonerate me. So whatever, but they're dragging this up 11 years later. The one thing they ever did get me on, that I made a regrettable rape comment to somebody that falsely accused me of doxing her. Mind you, not only did I not report her fake Facebook account, but that wouldn't be doxing. I reported tons of fake Facebook accounts. And if I knew then what I know now, I would have reported hers too. And guess what? That's not doxing. If you get a notice from Facebook that says you need to use your real name or disable your account, and you put in your real name, well, that's still not doxing. But if it were, you'd be doxing yourself. But what amuses me is all these people bringing this up. But a shop hires a convicted pedophile, and they call it restorative justice.
Look, I'm all for people like changing their behavior, changing, having another chance at life. I'm 100% all for those things. But when it comes to child predators, there is no restorative justice. You have damaged a child for the rest of their life, all through their adulthood, and so on and so forth. Where is the justice for that child? How can you even use that phrase?
I don't know how I feel. I may not agree. I mean, I think there may be a point. Like my niece Angel said, they should be shot and, you know, whatever, shot and killed. I don't believe in the death penalty because, not because I couldn't pull the switch. Like if I knew you killed my mother and I knew it for a fact, you'd probably be dead and extrajudiciously. But I wouldn't. I don't believe the government should have the power of sentencing death. I don't, because they don't. If they get it wrong once, they can't give them their life back. Now, do I think a child molester should be able to get a job? Well, yeah, because I don't want the state paying for them. But I don't think they should be in a wit shop that sells children's books. And I don't, you know, I'm pretty sure they changed, like, okay, this Ravens Oasis, first they changed it to Eddie Massey was on the phone. You know, he only read on the phone. And I looked at his profile before, and I specifically looked for the word phone, and I couldn't find it.
No.
So I think they added that after to make it sound like, he wasn't.
The minute you showed.
Really, yeah, but then they ended up taking him off.
Right. But the minute you brought this to light, they started backpedaling all over the place and tried to literally shift the focus on you. Okay, this is apples and oranges here. We're talking about a child sexual predator. This has got nothing. It just happened to be that you're the person who brought it to light. So what about if somebody else would have brought it forward? What would the outrage?
It would depend on whether they liked the person or not. Most people, and I mean most people, because I've been dealing with it my entire life. It is one of the things I despise the most about humans. Most people, the vast majority of people, based their morality, ethics, what they think are right or wrong on who they like. It's a sad state of affairs, but I'd be willing to go so far as to say 99% of people. I would say that because it's what I've experienced my whole life. You know, if my mother did it, I'm going to turn a blind eye. Well, obviously, if my mother did something, I might turn somewhat of a blind eye. But I don't know, because when my mother, I don't know, she got drunk once and drunk driving and kicked the cop. And I remember telling her how pissed off I was. You know, I didn't say, it's okay, Mom, because you're Mom. No. If you're wrong, you're fucking wrong. Wrong is wrong. I honestly believe I am in a number of as low as 1% in the world in having that mindset. Just because so many of my experiences have told me, you know, there are people who support me when I'm wrong because they like me. And I don't agree with that either. You know what I mean? Like if there's things that I've said I did wrong that people had no problem with. Oh, that wasn't so bad. I'm like, well, you know, I shouldn't have done it. You know, and I can say I shouldn't have done it. So people, you know, I don't know. I refuse to separate myself from my own integrity and sense of ethics. I won't do it, you know, and the outrage is so disgustingly selective in all of this, you know, but hey, I fucking won. Not only did they let that person part ways with him, but now Oracle Hecateo / Luis Valadez has been demoted from moderator or admin status from the British traditional Wicca Discord that was what started all this mess. I wouldn't have even known about any of this. Had Navi Souza, Jonathan Souza, I'm going to dead name Jonathan Souza because Jonathan Souza constantly spews lies about me. So I will respect Jonathan Souza's gender identity and pronouns the day he stops texting people and telling them that I send kiddie porn via email. Oh, and that's the best part. So I find out this guy's texting people and posting on the Discord, you know, saying Maxine Sanders is telling covens to recule, which is a form of excommunication, any trans person from a coven. This is such a bald-faced lie. I've known Maxine for 20 years. She does not. She does not only does she not interfere in other people's covens, but this reculement was made up by Theos and Phoenix of the Long Island tradition. Yes, Gardnerians watching the show, I know how much Neil Hartnett and Tim Reagan and the rest and Paul Orr, they all love to tell everybody, oh, all this came from Monique Wilson through Raymond Buckland. That's a lie. Raymond Buckland, even though I'm sure Jason Mankey neglected to put it in, hold on, I got to turn off my buzzer here. Even though I'm sure Mankey neglected to put this in his review of God damn it, this thing is like a nightmare to turn off. It's, you know, says I ate too much sugar, so so I might be a bit wired. Buckland said that Theos and Phoenix had done more damage to the craft with their changes than all the witch hunters of the Middle Ages combined. This was in his last interview before he died on the Wild Hunt. Most of this claptrap and 400 pages of whatever materials that the Long Island Line Gardnerians added to their Book of Shadows is not real, it's not true, and it's not craft. We don't have reculement in the Alexandrian tradition. We are essentially downline from Patricia Crowther, the entire Alexandrian tradition. And Crowther didn't have reculement. We don't have that. We don't have that. You can banish someone in a coven, but you always give them a road home. You can't, however, banish somebody that isn't in your coven, is now downline from you in another coven. You cannot do that. It's a lie. And not only do we not have that in Alexandrian, anybody texting you or telling you, because I've already received two different people's, you know, two people have contacted me about texts they got from Navi Souza and saying that, you know, and I saw that Navi posted it on his wall, or Jonathan Souza posted it on his wall, that, you know, Maxine is asking people to recule trans people. What a lovely distraction from the fact that you guys are rubbing elbows with a convicted child molester. And what a wonderful thing to do to trans people. I mean, not for anything. Navi, Oracle, they're all Oracle's new triad, or, you know, I don't know what they call a boyfriend if it's a non-binary. It's not a boyfriend or a girlfriend. I don't know the word. Don't get me started on non-binary. I might not be kind. But they're all non-binary. So what a nice thing to do for trans people. What a nice thing to do for gay people. So you're going to associate your store that's owned by a trans non-binary gay witch, all categories, mind you, that the right wing tries to attack as Jesus Christ Almighty, please don't make me have to deal with this sort of thing. So anyway, sorry, I was a little distracted by things in the chat. Please try to keep it civil because I don't want to have to just destroy you. You know, it's all just a wonderful distraction to focus on things I supposedly did, you know, 24 years ago or what have you. You know, they've never told the truth about me. And you know that even if I were even rumored to be touching children, they would assume I was guilty. If I was extradited to Pennsylvania like Eddie Massey was, and charged with 2 felonies and 2 misdemeanors, they would think I was guilty. And then if I actually pled guilty to the misdemeanors to get the felonies dropped, like Edward Massey did, I would never get restorative justice. Now, there
is no such thing as restorative justice. I mean,
look, I do think that, you know, if a certain amount of time, you know, let's say it's been 20 years and the person hasn't re-offended, maybe. I mean, I don't know. It's such a terrible thing because you're talking about vulnerable children. Do I think it should be forever? I don't honestly know. But here's what I do think. I don't think they should be in a shop that sells children's books. And even if they only had him on the phone at Raven's Oasis in Florida, it's in Cocoa, Florida, by the way, even if they only had him on the phone, you're associating him with witches. And I remember 10 years ago when that Coven's Cottage in Salem was selling all these Nazi books by Stephen McNallen. They sold Valgard Murray's calendar, who was on the Southern Poverty Law Center website as having once signed his letters, Heil Hitler. And I sent the Chamber of Commerce in there, and I sent Destination Salem, and I sent, the Office of Tourism. I sent the Salem's No Place for Hate committee in there, and I was ready to burn it all down. I will destroy all witchcraft in Salem before I allow witchcraft to be repackaged as racism, and I would have done it. And they did stop selling those books. Now, do I think they still have those views? I don't know. It's Pride Month, and whereas, I don't ever put a flag up because I don't have a flag holder, but, everybody knows I'm gay owned. While all these other shops in Salem decided to put up a pride flag for June, Coven's Cottage puts up an American flag. Now, I could understand if they had it up the rest of the time. I don't see anything wrong with an American flag, but the fact that they put that up during Pride Month was absolutely sending a message. So no, I don't like these people, but, I don't like what they were associating us with. And I don't like that a witch shop is associating us with child molesting. And yes, to speak to, I had one Gardnerian high priest, say, well, they did bend to you. And he goes, but they just thought, you were doing it for your own agenda. And it's like, well, two things can be true at once. When Nutless Wonder's, chunk-a-monk of a wife there, well, she's not so much of a, I will say, I inspired Nutless Wonder's wife because I kept calling her fat. So finally she got on that Ozempic and now she looks scrawny. And it's sort of like the time I called that photographer, Alan Spears. I kept calling him gap tooth, so he got his teeth fixed. And then there was that Marie Guerrero. Her mouth looked like a bowl of Fruity Pebbles, and I kept pointing it out. So she finally had her teeth all done. See, sometimes meanness can inspire people to improve themselves. But anyway, this associating us, it's the optics of it. And yes, am I enjoying this? Every fucking minute of it, you best believe. Like when Nutless Wonders' wife said, he's virtue signaling that he cares about children, but he called ICE on our daughter. That's a lie. I reported them to ICE because they were putting their daughter in the store under the table, according to two former store managers and one former cashier or whatever, Michael Carell, what were you, a sales associate? I don't know, a psychic, whatever. But there were three people and that told me this was going on. And okay, fine. I reported two Canadian white people to ICE, but Nutless Wonder reported Elohim Lifar to ICE. And while that weird Amarella Moon keeps saying I bragged about having done so, I will say this to Elohim, I will say this to Amarella, I will say this to Nutless Wonder. If I ever bragged about this publicly after the fact of having called ICE on Elohim Lifar, I will give $50,000 to the first person who brings me proof of this. And the reason I can say it is because there is no proof. It didn't happen. Wild called ICE on Elohim. He admitted it to me. He admitted it to Michael Carell. He admitted it to Marta Carell. I have a screenshot. Basically, if you read between the lines, he's admitting he did it, unless you think he's talking about Vanilla Ice or Ice Ice Baby or, ice cubes. I mean, the screenshot I have makes it pretty clear that Nutless Wonder did this. So you're going to come at me, there's Nutless Wonder on Oracle Hecateos's posts, liking Oracle's claim that hiring this criminal is restorative justice. And there's the wife going, I don't know what they're talking about, but he's virtue signaling. First of all, she does know what I'm talking about. They're liars. They know full well by now that this guy hired a convicted person, and they don't care. But they'll ding me because I wrote some letter to ICE about their bad behavior. And that was after they were brandishing what looks like a gun 3 doors down from my store when they took the Omen space after we vacated it, after trying and getting roundly thrown out by a judge, trying to get a restraining order on me because they were so afraid of me. Yet they moved their store, 3 doors down to me, which is, of course, what you do when you're afraid of someone, right? And again, where's the restorative justice for the child? I mean, look, we could get into the debate of how long somebody has to have, not offended again before we let them into the community. But, there's a certain level of optics here. Like I said to this Gardnerian high priest, 2 things can be true at once. I am enjoying every fucking minute of this, in the sense that Navi and Oracle and, Nutless Wonder and all these people have, including Deborah Lip, have all said horrible things about me that some of them lie about. Deborah Lip's like, I never called you a racist. Well, that's what her wife said. First of all, and she loves Dorothy Morrison. Well, whatever the case may be, 11 years ago, when Reed Wildermuth posted horrible things about Dorothy Morrison and I, there was Deborah trashing me on the post. And the post was basically calling us racist because Dorothy had used this term, the race card, and they were all attacking her for it. And I don't think she meant it in a racist way, the way she explained it. So I defended her. And, next thing you know, we're both being called racist. And, 11 years later, they're lying through their teeth about it. And they're like, oh, well, we love Dorothy. I don't love Dorothy. I think Dorothy is one of the most selectively outraged people I've ever met. I fucking despise Dorothy Morrison now. I have no use for her whatsoever. I'm glad she retired, and I think she's a complete fraud. So, at the end of the day, I don't care. At the end of the day, I'm going to say the truth. And the truth is, these people hired a fucking person convicted of indecent assault of a minor. And so I wouldn't have even dug this information up about Raven's Oasis, and somebody did make the point, because I know you might have seen on Oracle's post, because I put it on there. I actually tagged a right-wing Christian church in Cocoa, Florida. And of course, if my big problem is the optics, I can see why somebody would say, well, wait a minute, aren't you bringing, what are you doing, Shannon?
There's people texting me.
Oh. So anyway, what was I just saying? Now I lost my train of thought.
You're talking about the church in Cocoa, Florida.
Oh, yeah. So, yes, I did. And you might say, well, wait a minute. If you're worried about the optics, what are the optics going to be if the Christians pick this up? Well, to that, I will say, if I had a pedophile in my coven, I would have to face the idea that some might see turning that pedophile into the police would be a form of oath breaking because that person's in my coven. And in the most technical of senses, that may be the case, but I would still turn them in. You follow what I'm saying? It's like you have an obligation, don't you think?
Well, exactly. And this is my whole problem with this situation, because it's not just about this particular situation. This has been going on for years and years and years in our community. And the first thing out of any pagan or witch or whatever you identify as, first thing out of their mouth is they'll start bashing the Catholic Church and all the horrors that have went on there with all the instances of sexual abuse and highlighting all the cases of this and other situations. Okay, well, why is it when a situation like this pops up into our community, because this is by far not the first time that it has, why does this community always cover for these people or hide these people, or basically
I would ask, why do they cover and hide these people while they attack others among us for far more trivial things? Like, look at the way they go after. I mean, look, I don't agree with all of Z Budapest's views or Ruth Barrett's, but I have both of them at WitchCon. I like them as people. I don't agree with everything they say, but like the way people attack Z Budapest or Ruth Barrett compared to how much of a blind eye they turn to pedophiles really sort of bothers me. I don't think you're making a case for trans rights by saying, I hate TERFs, but hey, pedophiles are great. No, that isn't good. Right. That's not good optics for you trans people. Sorry, it's not. You fools. Idiots.
And that's just
retards.
The whole selective thinking and siding with, like, it to me it's appalling, because again, I've seen this time and time again through the history of our communities. And well, you don't, the famous, well, you don't know the whole story. Okay, well, if you're on the sex offenders registry list and it's proven that you were convicted of something, I don't need to know any more of the story, because my heart breaks for the child, first of all. And second of all, I don't want the gory details. Whatever the Department of Justice says that you did this, you had these repercussions.
I mean, here's the thing. Does the courts get it wrong? Do the courts get it wrong?
Of course they get things wrong.
In 1990, I realize Alan Dershowitz, ironically, is probably not the person to quote these days, though I still think he's an intellectual giant. I remember in 1992 when he spoke before Salem State University at the 300th anniversary of the Salem witch trials, and he came through satellite because he was busy working on the O.J. Simpson trial. But I remember him saying something and comparing the trials themselves to pedophilia accusations and that sort of thing. And he said, no crime should be so great that even innocence is not a defense. So I do get it. Do I think that people, I mean, Jody Cabot told half of Salem in 2002 I was a child molester. I forgave her. I ended up putting her on Keen. She made all kinds of money. Then, her mother hasn't spoken to her in 20 years. So when she realized Lori and I had gotten close again, she then goes on my wall and says something about me being a twice convicted pedophile. And I'm like, well, what the fuck? You know what I mean? Like, she's done this to me twice. I'll never forgive her again. I'll always love her, but she's too crazy and I don't want her around. But I've been on the receiving end of those kinds of rumors multiple times. Jonathan Souza, Navi Souza, he's out there sending people texts that I send kiddie porn, over the email. But here's the thing. Okay, so Wicked Witch said, that is why you plead not guilty. Well, there are times where they say, I had a friend of mine, that was married to, a mob boss who said to me, sometimes the charges they throw at you are so harsh that you plead guilty to the lesser charges just, to avoid being convicted of the greater ones. But if they had enough to convict him on the greater ones, then no, he shouldn't have pled guilty. Somebody made an argument to me, I met this person, I don't know that I made a new friend, but I did like the conversation. And, she had put something out there that, mentioned that one of my followers wanted to bring back the swastika. And I don't know why my name was this. Well, the guy told me. And of course, so I said, well, do you want to bring back the swastika and paganism? And he goes, well, 20 years ago, I said it. And I'm like, well, I don't know why they're bringing that up now. But what I will say is, no, I do not agree that anybody, okay, if you're Asian, if you live in India or some Buddhist country or Hindu country, fine. You're going to have the swastika. It's part of your culture. It goes the other direction anyway. But no, I do not believe that the swastika should be reclaimed in any way in any Western magical, spiritual, or religious tradition. But, the woman and I got to talking, and, there's a lot of really great stuff that came out of the conversation. She did make the point that what he pled guilty to, Massey, was a misdemeanor, and that maybe we'll find out eventually that the courts got it wrong. And what if we have egg on our face? Well, here's the thing. To me, a conviction is enough that if we as a culture believe the conviction, well, what else is there? I mean, most people in this culture believe a rumor. Most people would have believed it at the time he was extradited and charged. I chose to wait until he was convicted to fully take a position. Yes, I uninvited Massey to WitchCon 2 years ago when he was extradited because the charge was great enough that while I wasn't going to assume his guilt, I wasn't going to be around it. And if anybody thinks, like I said earlier, two things can be true at once. Yes, I'm absolutely enjoying the schadenfreude of all this, but I would be mad otherwise. And proof of that is Alexander Cabot, because I blocked him a while back because he refused to disassociate with Edward Massey. He used to do a video call, an interview show with him and Eddie Massey. I don't remember if I was on it, but I might have been on it. I know Yesha was on it, Yesha Matthews. I know my husband, a bunch of people were on the show with Alexander Cabot and Eddie Massey. I ended my friendship with Alexander Cabot over his connection to Edward Massey. So if anybody thinks this is just me taking a shot and getting even, well, there's absolutely some of that involved, which is why you shouldn't fuck with me, which is why you shouldn't go through my house with a white glove unless you don't have a speck of dust in yours. I have no sympathy for you. If you've got dog shit on your kitchen floor and you come poking into my house and I show everybody the dog shit, well, shame on you. You're the moron that got involved. I mean, Jesus Christ, I'm like a goddamn cockroach after an atomic bomb. They've tried to cancel me so many dozens of times, you'd think they'd get a clue by now that the fact that I'm still here means I'm either innocent of most of it or utterly impervious, or maybe both. But here's the thing. Shannon points out, accurately so, that this is a continued problem in our community, to the point where I had Claude do a deep dive into this. And this just makes my hair curl. Just the Eddie Massey stuff, Marla Robeson and Stacy Saros, I don't know how to say her name. They're both among the coordinators of Mystic South. Both of them liked both of Oracle Hecateos's doubling down posts that this is restorative justice and I'm showing compassion and all of this. But he leaves out the fact that the guy was convicted of child molesting. So all these people click and like going, well, I support restorative justice, have no idea. They were liking, I thought that was so disingenuous of Oracle Hecateos to put something vague out there that all these people would like, only to find out that once they find out what it's really about, it's about a child molester, which is why most of the comments on there were negative. And so you could give Stacy Saros and some of those people the benefit of the doubt. Maybe they didn't know about pedophilia, but I personally messaged Marla Roberson. I personally messaged her, showed her all of the receipts and the proof of this. She blocked me. She was on my friends list. She blocked me. Then she went and liked the second post that Oracle put, calling it restorative justice, meaning she knew it was about a pedophile and she still liked it. Meaning if you're presenting at Mystic South or you're attending Mystic South, you may want to really consider the ethics of these people. I already think Heather Green is an unmitigated scumbag, and I have for years. But now I have the same position on Stacy Saros and Marla Roberson. So that's literally three people that run Mystic South. So if you're going to Mystic South, you're basically signing on to people that think this is okay. And if you're going to Sacred Space, that uninvited Byron Ballard, several people involved with that, including Evo Dominguez, clicked like on
it's the hypocrisy. Okay, you don't you dare buy a Harry Potter book, but let's bring this pedophile into our store and have them around children or other pagan events or whatever where there's families present. That's okay, but don't you dare buy a Harry Potter book. Don't you dare.
Well, look, I'm all for trans rights, but it's hard to feel sorry for you or gays, and I am one, when you're gay and trans, and all these trans gay people are standing up for the right to hire the pedophile that molested a small boy. Give me a fucking break. Yeah, when you do that, the overculture is going to have a problem with you. And as far as my hypocrisy of notifying that church, well, as I said to a Gardnerian priest friend of mine, It's called calculated chaos, and I'm really, really good at it. When the city of Salem wouldn't allow Sean and I to join the tourism office in 2003, we hired a bikini softcore porn vampire from Canada and put her on posters, riding a scythe in a bikini and having an orgasm on every street pole in town. It sent everyone over the edge. And the idea was, well, if you can't handle witches, let's see what else we can pull off the Universal Studios backlot. And this is another form of managed chaos. Would I have actually risked a full-on satanic panic and every Christian church in America coming for trans, gay, and witches if that store had not gotten rid of Edward Massey? You bet your fucking ass I would have. Why? Because if you're going to throw away our optics, let me help you. Like, if you really want to take a chance with the perception of witches by hiring this fucking child molester in your store, I'll help you. Let me send it to all the Christians. They already harass me every year. Jesus, that one Philip Renner Ministries did a whole Instagram. There was like, before he deleted it, there were like 1 million likes and like thousands of comments. And the whole Instagram video was all about praying for the soul of Christian Day. So these people already harass me en masse in October. Do I want to see another satanic panic? No. But I bent that elastic just enough to show these motherfuckers I meant business. And if you're going to jeopardize 40 years of my life's work, I've been a public witch for 25 years, but I've been a semi-public witch for almost 40. Laurie Cabot put me on a TV show at 20 years old, a national TV show. She said, "Oh, you look like you can speak well. Here, talk." And so you're taking 40 years of my life's work, socializing witchcraft, making sure that my staff in those stores understand that every tourist they help goes back to Arkansas or Wyoming or whatever small town they're from and says, "A witch helped me. They gave me a reading. They sold me a candle so that I could get a new job or help me fix my marriage." Witches are nice people. Hold on. Why? It's like, witches, hold on. That was my husband. I don't think he understands that I'm on the show.
See, he doesn't know what time it is either. We're all confused. We're in 3 different time zones.
So anyway, yes, I come across, what is it that I love Beth Dutton on Yellowstone? You are the trailer park. I am the tornado. Look, I'm not a fucking laser beam. I'm a wrecking ball. I'm a dirty nuke. And if this community can't police itself from within, I don't have laser beam ways of forcing your hand. I just have giant wrecking balls called, I'm going to go use my name and my publicity power to go and get every fucking Christian church protesting the outside of that store, if that's what it fucking takes. I didn't want to have to go there, but make no mistake, you won't guilt me into otherwise, because it's called calculated chaos. I'm going to pull that elastic just far enough to show you I mean business. Now, does it mean I won't pull it all the way? Not at all. But do the right fucking thing. Don't be attacking Maxine Sanders. Don't be trashing me or my husband. Don't be trashing Sharon Day. Don't be being mean to Deborah Landau and Tracy Frashy for fucking lies you told 10 years ago. Treat people fucking right, and you won't have to deal with me. It's not hard.
Here's the thing. I know that everybody's not a fan of Christian. I know people have their differences with him and don't agree with his messages sometimes. And I totally understand it. And we all shouldn't get along. That's not the way the world works. It'd be boring if we did. But and I said this to Christian. When this came up, I really thought that this was one thing that we were all going to agree on, no matter what side of the coin you were on. It didn't matter if you hated Christians guts into the ground. I thought that you were going to see that this was a problem, that we were all going to agree on this. Like, yes, we need to do better as a community. We don't need pedophiles in our community. I thought we would all agree on that. And the fact that some people thought that it's perfectly acceptable, was
I
astounding.
really wasn't. I mean, I was shocked a little, but I wasn't. I'll never forget the time when that ghastly Cauldron Black opened in Salem, and it's owned by a woman that's extremely socialist. And she posted a picture of the flowers that the people from Nazi Cottage sent her. And I thought to myself, people hate me so much that Nazis and social justice socialists will hug it out in their hatred of me. I mean, I have to admit, there's a certain amount of power in that. You know what I mean? Like Nazis and fucking communists are willing to, like, they hate me that much. I am not totally shocked that people think I'm worse than a child molester because they hate me so much. I am a little shocked that they actually ran interference for a child molester rather than allow me to be right. That did shock me a little. I guess I didn't expect as much of the kumbaya as you may have, but you know, I did think that at least be, and you know what, there were eventually saner heads prevailed. Now, whether those people on the British traditional Wicca Discord server demoted Oracle / Lewis, and I can, by the way, I can say, you know, to Louis Valadez, Melissa Payne, you know, all these other people trying to act like my saying they're initiates is oath breaking. So I had a priest say to me, well, that's because if there's even one person that didn't know they were an initiate, even if they've, you know, made this common knowledge and they're in all these groups talking about their priesthood, you know, which you're not violating oaths if they're out in any way. But the argument was, well, what if there's one person that doesn't know? I said, well, by that yardstick, every one of those initiates that signed that public statement against me in 2021 for a thing I didn't do. You cannot out River Anodian's mundane name of Andrea Berman when she used Andrea Berman as a Wiccan priestess in the 2004 Chicago Tribune, and then in 2014 and 15 read at my psychic fair as a witch named Andrea Berman. But despite my slight modicum of fame, there's a lot of people that don't know who I am. Most people don't know who I am. In fact, a lot of people saw that public statement from 2021 that didn't know who I was. Yet because of that public statement, they now know that I'm an initiate. So how are they any if that's oath breaking, then they're all oath breakers. And they're even more of an oath breaker because I was innocent of what they accused me of. So thankfully, that's not oath breaking. Now, if I had a pedophile in my coven and I turned him into the police, that might actually be oath breaking. And guess what? While I would never want to consciously violate my oaths, in that particular instance, I would turn them in.
Yeah,
and you know
that's
what I'd say to myself? I'd say, you know what? Our witch gods might not like you to turn people in, but I think they'll make an exception for this. I'm willing to trust, you know, if anybody thinks any way I've behaved in this past week is oath breaking, you know what? Thankfully, you don't decide my fucking life, cunts. I will leave it up to the gods. I will let them decide whether they think. And I'm willing to bet, you know, that bringing justice to the children that were, you know, or that were abused by these so-called leaders and witches and what have you, I'm willing to take my chance with the gods. I think we're good.
Yeah, I think they'd agree with you. I really do.
Well, and then you're going to love this. And okay, there's a little bit of schadenfreude in this as well. But, you know, there's, well, one of them anyway. Oh, and that's the other thing. You just saw Raven on the screen. You know, if this oracle's trying to pretend he didn't know, like 2 years ago when I first found out about Edward Massey, I privately blasted Alexander Cabot because he was my friend, just in case anybody thinks I'm just using this to get at enemies. I actually went after a friend over this. The difference is because he's a friend, I did it privately. Oracle's trashed my husband and I for over a decade. So I said, let me call this out. So I get a call from Raven and Oracle's on the phone with him, or Lewis, or whatever his name is today, another one that's good. And, you know, and I got to give it, Raven is one of the most kind, compassionate people that I've ever met. Now, he don't think there should be pedophiles in this either. I don't think his compassion extends there. But the way he's mistreated by people simply for being my friend. There's people that mistreat him for being my friend that thought hiring a pedophile was okay. I just want to know. I get I'm a cunt. I get I have said some mean fucking things when I'm mad. I get I have made my mistakes. But am I really worse than a pedophile? I mean, is there anything I have done that has elevated to that? But yet these people are relegating me to lower than a pedophile. And I told Oracle on that phone 2 years ago with Raven as my witness that this guy, Massey, was bad news. And I believe I said at the time, yes, he may be innocent. Raven, your memory might be better than mine. But I'm pretty sure that I said, well, he may be innocent. But this charge is serious enough that we have to take some kind of position. I never took he's totally guilty. I don't know. At the time. Now he's convicted. Well, at the very least, I'm able to say, by the yardstick of the federal justice system or the state justice system, this man is guilty. Well, that's the highest form of authority we have. Like, if we can't at least go, oh, he was convicted. I mean, I get fucking hung out to dry for just shit I've said. And they think I should be canceled to the end of time. Unless, of course, I, groped a child and went to jail, then some pagan, prison minister in a brown sundress, 400 pounds and flip-flops would show up at my cell with a cardboard athame and a Dixie cup chalice and tell me about the goddess, because make it make sense. I'm not saying there shouldn't be prison ministry, but please make it make sense. Like, how can you court child molesters while banishing Byron Ballard for saying that someone who transitions into womanhood at 40 does not understand womanhood the same way as somebody socialized since birth?
Again,
I asked trans women what they thought of that, and they didn't have a problem with it. Of course, that ghastly Misha Magdalene, I went looking at it, Misha's Tamsin Langley or whatever the fuck. I went to their Blue Sky page. Literally, there's thousands of posts, and every one is trans. I literally, look, I'm a gay guy. You don't hear gay. My religion is witchcraft. My life is witchcraft. My career is witchcraft. You don't sit there with me, which, gay, trans. I mean, my husband thinks I talk about this trans thing too much because it's always coming up in these situations. Yes, we want trans rights for pedophiles. And so, I mean, linking the trans non-binary cause to pedophiles is not the flex you think it is. Take it from a master in public relations. And if you don't think I am one, I've literally survived. I have been called everything from a murderer to a child molester, raping women, raping men, a womanizer, a pedophile, an arsonist, a Satanist, a woman beater, animal abuser. The only thing that I haven't been accused of in the court of pagan public opinion is bestiality. So I do ask my friends and foes alike that, if you hate me that much, say you saw me fuck a goat in the woods, because then I can complete my bingo card. But the reality is, I haven't done any of these things. I've said a few mean things to people when they piss me off. Sure, sue me. But, if you hate me so much that you're willing to stand arm in arm with child molesters, there's something really wrong with you. And, I know he knows I'm going to be talking about this because he blocked me, so I know he knows it's coming. Hello, Tim Ozpagan Hartridge in Australia. You knew this was coming. So, of course, once I expose this, I'm hearing from everybody. What about this one? What about this one? What about this one? Apparently, this has been I don't go to these things. 35 years ago, Lori Cabot said that Sybil Leek called her on her deathbed and said, don't go to these pagan festivals. All they do is fight. So I never went. I went to Star Ravenhawk's thing there in New York because I could go take a helicopter around the Statue of Liberty and go shopping. And it's outdoors. It's New York City. I mean, how many kiddie porn tents could there be on, Astor Place? So, I've never gone to these things. I don't go to them. And, so I don't really see it, so now I'm hearing about it. There was when Moira Grayland came out and said, Isaac started fondling her when she was 6 years old. Now, this is Marion Zimmer Bradley's daughter. And look, I'm skeptical. I get the Me Too movement says you should believe all women. But since
we're supposed to believe all women, why aren't we supposed to believe all children either?
Well, in my opinion, believe all women means you have to believe everyone. And the reason I say that is because the trans community believes all you have to do to be a woman is say you're a woman. And therefore, everyone is potentially a woman by declaration. And if everybody is potentially a woman, then you have to believe everyone. How's that for warped logic? Anyway, so no, I don't believe everyone. I don't believe you should disbelieve everyone either. I think you should listen with compassion. I think people lie. People say, why would anybody make up sexual assault? I don't know. Ask Abigail Williams. During the witch trials of 1692, 11-year-old Abigail Williams said to Deacon Ingersoll, when asked why they were accusing all these women of witchcraft and men, Abigail Williams didn't say, well, I'm high on rye bread or, I'm a hysteric. No, Abigail Williams said, I do it for sport. So when, all other options are off the menu, attention is always on the table. So yes, I think even children make things up if they think they're going to get attention. Look at the satanic panic of the 80s and 90s. So I'm not quick. What do I think of the Isaac thing? Believe me, if this was just about schadenfreude and getting even, I despise Deborah Lipp. I despise her. I would love to be able to hang Isaac on her, and I did make a crack about her hiring a pedophile, but at the end of the day, I don't know if I believe it, because here's the thing. I know some people take a long time to come forward, but at 12 years old, Moira Grayland testified against her own father that he was molesting children, and then he went to jail. Can't remember the guy's name, but he went to jail on his 12-year-old daughter's testimony. Why would said 12-year-old daughter not also turn in her mother? Just a few years back, or a decade back, she accused Marion Zimmer Bradley of having a go at her. Well, why wouldn't she have said that when she said her father did it? Well, okay, maybe she gave her mother a pass. But why would you give Isaac a pass? Like, you turned in your own father, but you didn't say anything about Isaac till 30, 40 years later. Something's weird about that. So I've always had a difficult time believing the Isaac thing, but who knows? And if he was a child molester, what did Deborah Lipp know, and when did she know it? So who knows? But then I find out, so these people keep telling me that there's all these rumors in Australia of that Tim Ozpagan Hartridge, needing to seduce any women that join his coven. Well, I haven't seen any proof of this. I know the man did go on this crusade against me and Maxine. He attacked Maxine, he attacked me for comments I made about Gaza, which were taken, they were mean, but they were taken way out of context. Somebody went on to the Auschwitz Museum Twitter and was trolling it with this, Palestinian activism. And it's like, it's not that I don't have sympathy for the Palestinians, but you don't go on the fucking Auschwitz page and start saying shit. You don't. You just don't. Would you go to a voodoo ceremony filled with black descendants of slavery and start promoting slavery or some other, or saying, well, what about over there? You're going to walk into a black voodoo ceremony and go, what about Irish indentured servants? You'd get the shit kicked out of you, and rightfully so. You don't go to the Auschwitz Museum and what about it? So this guy's been going on and on. So, I'm a very fair person. I'm not just going to go there, because it's convenient. But now So apparently there's a gentleman named Robin Fletcher who was convicted of raping two 15-year-old girls and using witchcraft to do it. That's the worst part. Like, I don't know whether or not Eddie Massey used his status as a witch and, sadly, Alexandrian initiate, thanks to Luis Valadez, Oracle Hecateus, you had to just bring this person into the initiatory fold because, as I said earlier, you cannot recule people, you cannot uninitiate people. All you can do is sort of shun them, and great, we should. But thank you, Luis, for making this person an initiate. I don't know if Massey used his status as an initiate to mac on these kids, but I know that Robin Fletcher did. And even after his jail sentence was over, they used some legal thing to keep him in jail. And he was convicted in 1998 of sexual offenses versus two 15-year-old girls, including child prostitution, advertised a girl online, met them as a hypnosis youth counselor, served 10 years plus another 10 as supervision, released in 2017, and supervision lifted with no monitoring. So there was a group called the Pagan Collective of Victoria, and they put out a petition that said, you know, we don't want this person in the community. He's not one of us, blah, blah, blah. Now, look, I'm not a big fan of these public statements and petitions unless it says, you know, save the bunnies or the whales. I'm probably not going to sign the fucking thing because I just assume there's some lie in it somewhere. But if there was ever a time for such a petition, it's we don't want this person in the community. We don't care that they served 20 years. You used your witchcraft. You know, he used it for that. Like let me look this up because he used, I've got a whole list here. And when he was brought to court, he claimed his crimes were an expression of his Wiccan religion and that the sexual interactions were part of initiation. So Robin Fletcher made his sex offenses part of the craft. So yes, I think this Victorian pagan collective had do you disagree? I think they had every reason to do a petition.
Exactly. And again, we've spent years and years trying to distance ourselves from these labels and false accusations. And then you've got somebody going, oh no, that's a whole part of the religion in the court of law. Like,
so in 2017, my friend, quote unquote, I'm not even speaking to Fiona Horn at the moment. I may at some point. I don't know. I parted ways with her, not the other way around, because she refused to remotely defend me at all when Wendy Rule lied about me, when Tim Ozpagan lied about me. She said, oh, I'm not getting in the middle. Well, you do you, lady. I've stuck up for her enough. I just... I think these people think they part ways with me. No, 9 times out of 10, I kick them to the curb. So anyway, Ozpagan basically said his rehabilitation is something we should not shy away from just because it's too hard or dirty or sickening. He needs to hear from us and hear her views. And then he said shouting at him to go away is not something likely to be of any help. He offered to be the go-between, Tim Ozpagan Hartridge, to go communicate with Robin Fletcher and express our pagan's views as a way of rehabilitating him. And then he basically said that, it sort of sounds like what you're saying, but in a very twisted, sick way. Whereas, yes, this is in our community, but he basically said this is our collective shadow. And it's like, fuck you, motherfucker. When I know somebody's a pedophile, I want them gone. Like, I've never looked at this in any capacity, anywhere or any place and said this is fucking okay. I've never turned a blind eye to something like that. I uninvited another guy because there were several women publicly saying he'd sexually assaulted them. And I even said to the guy, I said, look, I don't know if it's true. I said, but this is more than just rumor. These are people saying you did it to them, not that they heard you did it to somebody else. This is people saying you did it to them. I've got to take this serious enough where I need to take a step away like I did with Edward Massey. I didn't know for sure. It was just an extradition at the time, but
you even said that about Ken. You said, okay,
this Tim Ozpagan Hartridge in Australia called the Victorian Pagan collective. He said they were waging a witch hunt, and he quoted Fletcher himself sympathetically. Saying that Fletcher had a complaint from a 2015 Good Weekend interview that no matter what he said, people assumed he was lying. I can express remorse and they can say, but you're lying. Basically, he was defending Fletcher's right to rehabilitate and that he wanted to help. And it's like, okay, if the pedophile gets out of their supervision in their jail, if you're going to practice some form of restorative justice, can there at least be a 5 to 10 year waiting period? Does it gotta be while the fucker's still on the sex offenders registry and probation? I mean, in Robin Fletcher's case, he was no longer being supervised, but the community had rather roundly declared, we don't want this person. Now, I'll be the first person to say I think some of these things are witch hunts. All those initiates that came against me saying I outed an initiate's mundane name, it was a flat out lie. But you didn't even say me. You didn't even see me. When do you see me go, that's a witch hunt?
No.
I never play the victim with this. Rather, I will come back at you with all the fires. I'd rather come back at you with all the fires of fucking hell than be like, it's a witch hunt. But, for Ozpagan to say this, like he basically wanted to bring a child molester back into the fold. Not only a child molester, but somebody who tried to traffic and prostitute out one of them and then called it Wiccan initiation.
Oh, that's just sickening. It's sickening to hear that.
It ain't even the worst one. Like, that's just one of the stories. Like, I got a list now. Like, they should have never...
Yeah, the floodgates opened when.
Well, can I just say to the I know I get haters watching. I want you to somehow find that piece of your brain that still works, and notice the fact that they, what was it? Nutless Wonder Wild there sent information packages to the entire city council of both New Orleans, Salem, all the business owners in the downtown. They've tried everything. They've thrown everything, including the kitchen sink. I'm still here. I'm still successful. I know they said, oh, he lost 2 stores. I didn't lose 2 stores. The Omen stores were profitable. We closed the Omen stores because my husband and I are in our fucking 50s. We don't want to be working to the bone. Like, it was easier to consolidate all our product lines into one store, because both Omen and Hex had very different product lines, which Shannon knows because she makes a lot of our products. They're very different product lines. So we wanted to make life a little easier for ourselves. It was nothing to do with economics. In fact, I wasn't even for it. Brian and Kaylin convinced me that life would be easier with the 2 stores, one in each state. And they were right, so I'm glad I did it. But like, each of our 1 stores is doing better than the 2 stores did when they were together, except for sometimes New Orleans, but that's because of that road construction. And Nutless Wonder, took the Omen space, and now that store's closed 2 days a week, and he has a sign saying to go to the other store, because he's not doing well in that space. So we're at least doing way better than he is. So, I'm still here. You aren't going to cancel me. If they couldn't by now, they never will. So what you either need to do is you need to ignore me or embrace me. And I do believe it was Abraham Lincoln that said the best way to destroy an enemy is to make him a friend. And unless you're Nutless Wonder, Lori Bruno, or Jody Cabot, or Lilia Lee, I think that's my list. And I could say Tara Hinckley, but she was never my friend to begin with. I never really liked her. So, okay, those 4 people are insane enough that I don't really want anything to do with them. But everybody else, like, if they just, like this lady I talked to last night that mentioned I had a follower that wanted to bring back the swastika. We had a great conversation. I mean, she said things that I don't totally agree with, like, we might have egg on our face, if we find out through appeal that his crime wasn't that bad. And I would just say, well, we're not going to have egg on our face. This person is convicted Like, not only do we not have the time to know the details of every court case, especially when it was pleaded out and we don't even have court records, but like Shannon said, do I want to know the gory details? Do I, if somebody's convicted of raping a child, do I want to know exactly how they did it? No. This sick sort of prurience in that. It's like those people that watch car accidents and just stand there. You know what I mean? I've never been one of those either. If I see a car crash, I actually keep walking. I'm not, unless there's something I can do to help.
Well, and that was another thing that kept getting tossed out there when we started talking about this. People kept saying, well, you can get put on the sex offenders list if you urinated in public. Yeah.
Tim Reagan was for urinating in public.
Yeah, we get that. We're not stupid. We also can read. And when you go to the sex offenders list, which are not private, they're available in every state, locally, federally, however you want to look them up. They're all there available. So you can see if there's any in your neighborhood, or if there's any living by a school, which they're not supposed to do, or so on and so on and so on. You can read what they were convicted of. And if it is public urination, it says that. If it says that you did something to a 13-year-old boy, it says that. So
now, did I say a couple of times over the years that Tim was on the sex offenders list without saying what it was for? Maybe that might have been a little, call me Petty LaBelle. But when you go to Edward Massey's sex offender registry, it lists the crime as indecent assault. It lists the crime. Now, that doesn't say minor, but if I go to the rest of the convictions and everything else, corruption of the minor is one of the convictions. Like, I was fair enough, unlike my haters, like Jonathan Navi Souza, texting people and saying that I send kiddie porn through email. And then there was the time they said I put Lori Cabot's grandson on a kiddie porn site. I mean, you have no idea the weird thing. And here's the other thing. If you are a hater that wants to get rid of me, try telling the truth. I shouldn't even give you this ammunition, but if I had to guess, the single thing that's allowed me to keep surviving all of these attacks over the years, this is the secret. The hyperbole of your enemies is your strongest shield, and sometimes your sharpest sword. Because when somebody says, oh, he put this child on a kiddie porn site, and then they find out the truth of this misdemeanor that I just had some people prank calling Jody, and that was after she cost, her, Carol Bolzone, and Paula Forrester were harassing my work, and I was laid off. And maybe I would have been laid off anyway, but I lost a $72,000 a year job. So I had people prank call them. This was like, prank call Jody like 24 years ago. I did 24 hours of community service. And, so I had my own little bout with the law. But everybody was like, oh, he's a pedophile. Oh, he put the kid on a kiddie porn site. So what happened was people would go, did you really do this? And when I told them what it really was, they were like, oh, that's not so bad. And I'd be like, well, no, what I did was wrong. Oh, no, it wasn't so bad. And the reason they say that is because when you go right to child molesting without a conviction, mind you, or even a charge, and you start saying, oh, Christian Day is a pedophile, and then they find out it's totally something else, I've gotten away with so many dastardly things. I really have, for that reason, because nobody ever tells the truth. Like, they don't say, oh, Christian, prank call, or they lie and say, with Lori Bruno saying I called her in the middle of the night. First of all, anybody that knows me knows I might call you in the middle of the night and call you a cunt. Shannon, shut up. It wasn't the middle of the night. Actually, maybe it was.
It was.
I might have called her a cunt in the middle of the night. I was mad one day, but the thing is, so I've called her a cunt in the middle of the night. If I was going to call Lori Bruno in the middle of the night, I would have introduced myself.
Yeah, I was going to say that I full well knew who was calling me, and that's just it. Christian's not going to come in cloaked.
Like, there's nothing subtle about me. So it's not that I haven't been mean, but it's like, and you're going to toss this Lori Bruno thing. Here's the real amusing thing. That Navi Souza acted like he became a hater because that woman that accused, in 2014, she accused me of doxing her, which was reporting her Facebook account, which is not doxing. And she, called me chubby or pudgy or something like that. And, and she's like, I have a stalker. And okay, I said, if he rapes you, call out my name. It was a horrible thing to say. I apologize everywhere. And when I kept apologizing, and Raven Gramowski said, well, you haven't apologized there over Twitter, and you haven't apologized here over Tumblr, and you haven't done this. Finally, Lori Cabot called me yelling to stop apologizing because it wasn't written. Now, was I said horrible? Of course it was horrible. But like the way they just keep dredging this out while they're rubbing elbows with an actual child molester. Like, okay, you have a right to be outraged by the fact that, as Lorelei says, my best friend, Christian's got to learn to watch his filthy fucking mouth. Okay, I'm a rotten bitch, but as she says, I'm her rotten bitch. But, Bruno, so Navi, Jonathan Souza, and what's his name? River Anodian. They claimed that they were haters of mine because of that rape comment from 12 years ago. When in reality, River worked for my psychic fair for 2 years in a row after that comment. Jonathan was my friend for 2 years after that comment. Lori Bruno unbanished, Jonathan was gossiping about Lori's son. She unbanished him in 2016 so that he and River would become weapons against me. They had no personal issue with me whatsoever. They became haters because they were trying to, suck up to Lori Bruno. Now, flash forward to 2020, there's Lori Bruno cursing black looters with the Black Lives Matter movement and, going full on Trumpy. Vinnie Russo's on there going, her account was hacked. Fuck you, Vinnie, her account was not hacked. I literally know people in Salem that Lori Bruno has called trying to promote voting for Trump. She's absolutely a fucking Trumpy, and she said some pretty racist things. So, Jonathan and River, I really hope that kicking me to the curb to suck up to someone who is now a QAnon racist Trumpy was worth it. Because I still see Vinny liking all her stuff except the racist stuff. But I don't see Jonathan or River Anodian on her wall anymore. They must have unfriended her. I guess, sort of makes you wonder. So, yeah, so you've got that Oz pagan. Here's another one that I found kind of scary. This one was really terrifying. The Glasgow Witches and Wizards Ring in Scotland. They basically forced children into witchcraft classes, casting spells with wands and using Ouija boards to summon spirits and demons, and in the process raped and tortured children as young as 1 to 3 years old. Some of this abuse was filmed and paid for. They were convicted in November 2023 and sentenced on January 27th of last year to lifelong restrictions. Now, I don't know is restriction prison? I would hope these people went to prison. Members in minimum terms: Ian Owens, 20 years, Elaine Lannery, 17 years, Paul Brannon, 15 years, Leslie Williams, 14 years, John Clark, 10 years, Barry Watson, 9.5 years, and Scott Forbes, 8 years. I'm not Scottish, so I don't know if that means they went to jail. But how fucking horrifying is this? And they didn't just molest children. They used witchcraft to do it. They did it under the umbrella of craft.
Right.
Colin Bately in Wales, UK, leader of the Kidwelly sex cult, justified abuse via Aleister Crowley's Thelema initiation rituals, ended in child rape. Convicted in 2011 of 39 charges, including 11 counts of rape over decades. James Roland Irvin in West Virginia. He called himself a magical warlock and told children that sex acts were magic to heal their sick parents and resurrect a dead father. He was convicted in 2014.
He just needs a bullet.
Right. Well, he got 235 to 950 years because the victims ranged from age 3 to 12, and he will almost certainly die in prison. Like, I want to know how none of this is, you know what I mean? Like, they're just targeting me every fucking 10 minutes for like, okay, fine, I shouldn't have made a rape comment. It wasn't fucking nice. Call me a cunt, call me an asshole. You'd be right. I'm also crazy. I have intermittent explosive disorder. That's no excuse for saying mean things, but you know, it does explain things. I do know how to weaponize my crazy and turn it to my advantage. I don't understand. Like, it's the selective outrage for me. When I see these people literally pulling their hair out, literally, like some of these people, like Amarella Moon, they talk about me every day. Like they literally get, she was talking about her opinion on the gaming computer I bought. Like, you don't like that I bought an Alienware computer. Like, I don't know you. I've never met you. We've talked online like a few times, like 15 years ago. You have an opinion on my gaming computer?
That's
Like,
unhealthy. Like, there's.
I mean, these people are obsessed. Oh, this is my favorite. Matthew Volz in New Jersey, identified as Wiccan, sued the New Jersey Department of Corrections for Wiccan accommodations from prison. So the person did not use witchcraft as part of their crimes. But they were guilty of first-degree human trafficking and aggravated sexual assault of his own 7-year-old daughter.
Oh my God.
25 years, no parole. Here's my favorite. And this goes right out to you, Oracle, wanting to link your trans rights activism to defending pedophilia as restorative justice, because trans people aren't persecuted unfairly enough by the overculture, because they are. You know, trans people are absolutely unfairly, persecuted, as are gays.
And they don't need this.
Right. Well, here's what they really don't need. So Matthew Volz sues the Department of Corrections for his Wiccan rights, which is kind of interesting because they got that case right now in the Supreme Court where the prisoner was not allowed to keep their dreadlocks, and the Supreme Court voted that was okay. I have mixed feelings about it. I think when you're in prison, the amount, like, I think if you're in the military, your religious accommodation should be whatever. I think if you're in prison, maybe I'm just old school, but I think prison's not supposed to be Club Med. Like, I don't even know that I'd let Christians worship in prison. No, I mean, I wouldn't allow Christians and not witches. But I mean, you know, there's people that think only Christians should be able to worship. You're in fucking prison. Fuck off. You're lucky you occasionally get a TV. So Matthew Volz is now, here's for you, Oracle, Marina Volz, and is now, after raping his or her 7-year-old daughter, is now in a woman's prison. So how do we feel about that? There's an interesting, I just threw something real fucking controversial at you all.
Yeah, they don't need that stigma attached to them. They're all.
That's not what I asked. Should they be in a women's prison? If I raped a female, should I be able to decide to transition and go to a woman's prison after I raped her? I mean, I have mixed feelings. I don't have a definitive answer to that, but I can tell you I certainly have a lot of questions. And I'm by no means a right winger, but I do have, and you can say, oh, he's really a secret right winger. Well, if the left wing is pro pedophile, well, then I guess no, I couldn't be a right winger, because look at the Epstein files. But that's another example. I know I always talk about that political horseshoe theory. That's another example of it. The right wing were all demanding the Epstein files get released when Biden was president, and the left didn't care. Most of the left. And then when Trump became president again, it was the left-wingers demanding the Epstein files, and most of the right-wingers didn't care. Now, to be fair, there were some left-wingers that cared both times, and there were some right-wingers that cared both times. But the majority, the amount of shift between presidential tenure, when Obama, it was the right wing that wanted the Epstein files out. When it was, not Obama, Biden. And when it was Trump, it was the left-wingers. You should want the Epstein files released because of what's in them.
Right. Not who the president is.
Not because of your particular politics. You should want something. I want the Epstein files released because I don't think pedophiles should be out there fucking around. And I felt that when Biden was president, and I felt that when Trump was president. Every time I've heard about these Epstein files, my opinion has not changed.
No, sex offenders, that has no correlation to politics, but somehow yet it does, and that makes no sense.
Well, it's one of the reasons right wingers think I'm left and left wingers think I'm right, because I don't agree with it. Because I don't like extremism. I don't like double standards. I don't like selective outrage, and I never have. Anybody that has known me for any length of time knows that I'm extremely consistent about this sort of thing. One thing I want to raise, because you kind of have to, because they've been among the big people talk about. I once had Gavin and Yvonne Frost on my radio show in like 2009. They were so gracious. They sent me all these signed books, and they were very kind. But I did ask them about in their book they have this deflowering of a if once a girl hits puberty, they're going to deflower you with this, wand of some kind. And I'm thinking, Jesus fucking Christ. I still had them on the show because I wanted to ask, and he basically made it out that it was, and I'm not excusing this. I think this was wrong. But in the 60s and 70s, if you have any of those witchcraft books from back then, like everybody loves Paul Hewson's Mastering Witchcraft. It's one of the best books on magic ever written. But he does tell you to spit on a cross. And, there's things in there that, you put them in there because it was the 60s and 70s. You're trying to be extra Wicker Man shocking. Remember they're fucking on the lawn in the Wicker Man. Like we're trying to be all Wicker Man about it. And that, honestly, if I had to stake my life, I would probably say that's what the Frosts were doing. Now, I've heard rumors that their daughter said something, but I've yet to find any example of this. Just like I heard all this stuff about Ed Warren from Ed and Lorraine Warren, and they don't want the museum in Salem because he had sex with the 15-year-old girl, and how horrible is that? And half of these motherfuckers saying this are big fans of Raven Grimassi. When I used to be friends with him until he decided to curse me in the woods for apparently making a tree fall on one of his people. If I had that power, I would use it at a much higher political echelon than witches. There'd be trees out there at the Oval Office. Remember the ones that Melania dug up, from Jackie Kennedy? I'd be like, the trees. That would be, but I would be using, or rob banks. I don't know. If I could control trees, I might be a bank robber. I don't know. But Grimassi fired out at me and Lori Bruno, who were at odds at the time. Well, Lori Bruno, if there's one person in this community that knows where more bodies are buried than me, it's Lori Bruno. Like, if you have secrets, don't fuck with her.
Yeah.
I was able to toe-to-toe with her because I don't got any secrets. She had to make something up. But if there's actually something out there about you, she will find it. So she had that Rommel French post Raven Grimassi's when he was in his mid-20s. This is before Stephanie. He married a 15-year-old girl. Well, why is that okay for Raven Grimassi and not Ed Warren? I mean, I think going after a 15-year-old girl is creepy. I'm going to be honest. I've never been, I know people say I'm a chicken hawk. My husband's only 5 years younger. And I generally, I'm not saying I never dated somebody younger, but certainly not, younger than like 23. And that's, years ago. But, I think 15 is creepy. But what I think is more creepy is that you think it's okay for Raven Grimassi, but not for Ed Warren.
Back to what I
can
keep
someone
saying.
make that make sense to me? Like, what makes Grimassi and a 15-year-old okay and not Ed Warren? If there's any of you in the chat that believe that one is different than the other, is it because he was married? I mean, I just don't know. I can't make sense of the double standards. My head explodes when it hears them.
So my question is to our audience is what do we do as a community to prevent this? Police
Hire them.
stop this.
Hire them, apparently. Or like Tim Ozpagan, you send an emissary to represent us and try to matriculate them back into the community, apparently. Oh, you mean what should we really do?
Yeah. Because I do think that most of us and most of our leaders in our community are, and I don't think that this is on purpose or maliciously. I do think most people are lax of this. They like, oh, I vouch for them. They're okay. They can be in the coven, or this is a good person. I'm going to start bringing them to our meetups or whatever. We don't really do any kind of vetting, real vetting. And I know some people will disagree with me.
They did. They knew Eddie Massey. But okay, here's the thing. And I want to respond to you and to what Star here says. It was a lot more common back in the day, and it was wrong. I don't know that it was more common in the day. Most of these people in the list I put out today are in the last 20 years. Like Kenny Klein, convicted April 2017, 20 counts of child porn, one victim under 13, died in prison.
He's a classic example. Everybody knew about Kenny. Everybody did. And if they say that they didn't, they're a liar. Because
I didn't know because I don't go to those festivals like you do. You went to Convocation. Yeah. I only knew that Kenny Klein came into my store and said I wasn't a real witch because I wasn't Wiccan or some stupid thing. And it's like, I finally looked at him, and I wasn't an initiate at the time. I just said, dude, you go home and do your best curse, and I'll do mine, and we'll see what shakes out. It's like, you want to bring it. I know they all say I'm some, conjurer of cheap tricks. I'm just a sleazy marketer. I don't have any magic. Well, listen, bitches, I got everything these people do potions on Etsy for. I've got 2 homes. I've got a successful career and a hot husband. I take some nice vacations once in a while. If it's not magic, I'm willing to accept whatever it is. You know what I mean? Maybe Satan likes me. I don't know.
Yeah. Like what Star says, because obviously I've been on the pagan festival circuit for many years now. And and this is what I keep saying. This has gone on for years and years and years. How many times? I remember it was, I think 3 years ago, I was at somebody's wedding that was, she was a kid that grew up in the festival community, in the pagan community, and everything. And she's sitting there at this wedding telling us about, this guy used to do this and this to me. And my mom just, never believed it or told us he was just playing with us. It's like, what is wrong with people?
Oh, it gets better. So here's Jennifer Ann Jasmine, convicted 2014 second-degree sexual offense against a 16-year-old. She, of course, sued North Carolina prison for her Wiccan practice. See, I really don't even like it. Yeah, here's the thing. So now you're going to get into jail. You're going to say you're a woman so you can get into a women's prison. Look, I'm not necessarily patently against trans women going into a women's prison, but I'm absolutely against a trans woman who has raped women as part of her crime going into a women's prison. If you don't like it, I don't care. So Jennifer sued over her witchcraft practice. Here's Robbie Moore. Robbie Moore was a self-avowed warlock who led a witchcraft club and used black magic talk to lure and terrorize victims. In 1997, he was convicted for aggravated criminal assault with children as young as 4. This one, gotta love Daniel Hess of Ohio. The other guy, Robbie Moore, was in Illinois. Daniel Hess of Ohio practiced Wiccan pagan beliefs and told his teen daughter the power of 3 required all 3 of them to have sex to protect against evil. So 2 counts of sexual battery, tier 3, 9 years. Ohio's so this is,
you know what, I think I read about that one somewhere. I do recall that one.
Here's another one. Scott Gosington in Western Australia pled guilty, 22 charges of indecent assault. He was a self-professed Satanist in a coven codenamed Death, reportedly recruiting a junior coven from schools and scouts. So these people didn't just molest children and happen to be witches. They fucking used witchcraft in their molestation, including the one that Tim Ozpagan Hartridge wanted us to welcome back in Australia, while the, Victorian Pagan Alliance or whatever the fuck is, I can't remember the name, that Victorian pagan group sending out this massive petition saying we don't want them. Look, I'm not a big fan of petitions, and people do deserve some sort of restoration, maybe eventually, but the guy just got out from 20 years of jail and supervision, and he used witchcraft to rape these girls. Like, he wasn't just a rapist or a pedophile that happened to be a witch. He linked the two of them. Right. That's even worse than Eddie Massey.
Yeah, you don't drop the addict off at a crack house when they get out of rehab. It's the same thing.
Well, somebody said, can we discuss? Well, that person was actually on the chat, and I blocked him because he was bashing. I mean, I try to be polite because he's crazy, but Sin Miss Livitz is my friend. I am going to kind of stand for her, but I'm not going to talk about, unless it's in a very broad way like the Frosts, am I going to say I assume they're guilty? I have to presume Isaac Bonowitz's innocence, and I have to presume the Frost's innocence, because I wasn't there, and there's no conviction. But these people that would convict the Frosts are basically, saying, oh, well, do we know all the details? You know what I mean? It's like I had a Gardnerian priest ask, well, do we know all the details? I'm like, well, do we need to?
Yeah.
I mean, if there's a conviction and it's false conviction, well, that's a whole other problem with the justice.
Not even that they pled no contest. They pled guilty. Like...
Well, he pleaded guilty to avoid the worst charges. But if he thought he was innocent and could prove it, wouldn't you fight the worst charges? I mean, Lorelai knows criminals, so she was saying to me, there are some that will plead down because they're afraid they might lose the bigger charge. But that's different when it's like knocking over a liquor store. Yeah, or, you know what I mean? It's like, you're going to be tarred with child molesting for the rest of your life. Would you fight it? I would.
Jesus, yes.
Like, of course I'm going to fight it. And if he didn't fight it, there's going to be a reason he didn't fight it. I saw Michael come in briefly, but then he left. I was going to just about
like we said, I can, again, obviously I don't claim to know the ins and outs of criminal justice, but I do know that they, like you said, they plead things down just to get to the conviction. I know there's certain things the prosecutor won't even bring to the table if they don't think they're going to get a conviction. But again, this is apples and oranges. You're talking about a whole different realm here when you get into the sex offender realm. It's not the same as if you moved 30 keys of coke.
Well, I mean, it is like Alan Dershowitz says, it's a crime that's so great that generally innocence isn't even a defense. But this guy was convicted. In his case, like, I mean, I was freaked out because I had Claude do this. Like, I had Claude AI go in. See, there's uses to AI. I had Claude AI go in and search these sex offenders registries and various, it went out there and found all these people and gave me links so that I could check that they are in fact, what they are. I mean, imagine telling a child that if they have sex with you, it will heal your sick parents and resurrect your dead father. How is that not the most despicable? Yet these people, rather than actually address this issue, have just stepped up their attacks on me. How disgusting is that? Oh, well, some of them think you've enjoyed it. Well, I mean, I don't enjoy a child getting hurt, that's for sure. But do I enjoy that people that said I send kiddie porn via email are proven to rub elbows with pedophiles? Look, I'm human. Of course I'm petty enough to, of course I'm going to laugh. I won. You've demoted Oracle Hecateos. I'm surprised fucking Crosscrow hasn't gotten rid of his book. I think it's disgusting. I think it's disgusting that the people that run Mystic South think this is okay. I think if you're still presenting at Mystic South, you should really give it some thought.
Well, and I was going to bring that up because, again, you and I both know that in the past you have, even without a conviction, when there's been rumors and controversy brought up, you have asked people to step away. And you're like, this, first of all, not a good look. Second of all, you don't want to support somebody in that type of a situation or monetize them for what, and so as a festival promoter, I think they really need to look at their stance on some of that stuff.
Well, sometimes hating me is apparently more important to them than doing the right thing. And that's really, that's the real question they need to. I think this issue is so much bigger, if it even, it's a weird thing to say, is anything bigger than, hurting children? Maybe not, but it is that they cannot rationalize. Well, it's the problem is they can rationalize if they cannot analyze why it is they have such a double standard. Like why they can attack me for trying to defend myself. Yes, I reported those people to ICE and I would do it again. And that doesn't mean I don't think ICE is a racist organization. I think many police officers are racist, but I'm still going to call the police. They're going to come for me for some trivial thing, but yet they'll turn a blind eye, to child molesting. It didn't shock me as much as it shocked you, but it did shock me.
Yeah, like I said, I didn't, and again, I know what you're saying. I didn't think we were all gonna come together and be kumbaya. I agree, but I thought we were all going to see the point or the validity of this. I thought everybody was going to say, you know what, this is right. This is the right avenue. This is the right road. This guy shouldn't be involved. I thought that we were, no matter what our differences are, I thought that we were going to agree that hurting kids is wrong. I thought we were
really not. So I just sent some free giveaway of a WitchCon ticket and a code for 25% off dark candles to the YouTube chat, because we only give away to the YouTube chat. It's well, that's funny that I despise that Susan Diamond, but I will say this for Orion Foxwood. I remember when they deplatformed Witch Doctor Utu from PantheaCon, and that 9-foot tall black lady that felt that Utu shouldn't be there. I remember that Brenos Gunn, and he runs some Morrigan temple or some sort of thing. He messages me and he says, I have to escort Irene around, PantheaCon because she's afraid of Orion Foxwood. I'm like, the man is in a fucking walker. He's in extremely ill health. I said, Irene McAlphin is like 9 feet tall because she's more like 6 feet tall. But the thing is, like the idea that Orion is some dangerous force is just ridiculous. Now, do I think he steps in it sometimes? Yes. And I find Susan Diamond to be revolting. But I think Susan Diamond is mostly revolting because if you've noticed, Orion Foxwood every 2 days is asking for money because him and his husband are like surfing from hotel to hotel and they're like as poor as they've ever been, and I've given them a few $100s over the last couple of years, but I finally just said, I was like, where's this fucking Susan Diamond? She's used you for credibility for all these years. Susan Diamond wouldn't be anywhere if it weren't for Orion Foxwood lending his name to her constantly. Now she's got Matt Oren doing book signings and Devin Hunter, she seems to have replaced Orion.
Yeah,
but she sucked him for all he was worth. She couldn't give him a room in her house. Another one. Can't stand half these people. I find most of them disgusting. I do. If I do sound like a jaded bitch. I mean, today I'm literally having to read through an entire so-called coven in Scotland. and this one, Daniel Scott Holbrook, an ADF druid, founded Ravens Hollow, Protogrove, rose to ADF deputy regional, no contest plea, April 2017 to felony disseminating obscenity, hundreds of child abuse images. Prosecutor said he admitted downloading 300 plus preteen images for self-gratification. The plea deal spared him from registration, but ADF stripped his leadership after the court transcript surfaced. Well, this is not even 10 years ago. Like I said to Fitch, I said, most of these cases I'm finding are actually recent. Like, now wait a minute here. So this guy didn't even end up on a sex offenders list, but he downloaded 300 kiddie porn pictures of children, preteens, more than 300 preteen images so he could jerk off to them, and he's not on a sex offenders registry, yet Eddie Massey is. I'm sorry, but if somebody was jerking off to 300 pictures of preteens, I don't want him in a thing either.
No.
And he's not even on a fucking list. Like, seriously. Seriously. Jesus, this Robert Griffiths.
This is a point that I keep bringing up, though. I know this is tongue in cheek, but again, why are we so quick to condemn the other religions when they have these types of situations going on, which they hid and covered up for years, and we've done the same thing? This community has done.
Well, that's the one point that Ozpagan made that I, in a different post that I sort of agreed with, was that, we as a community have allowed it to happen. Okay, fine. I mean, I don't take responsibility.
Well, no, I don't personally either.
No, but I've never been part of the festival circuit. I didn't know who was what. I've always lived in the Salem cave. And, we have had situations like that very rarely. And when they did, I took a very strong stand. So, I've never been part of that festival circuit, so I really wouldn't really know. But now that I'm seeing this is the first I've been exposed, no pun intended, to this stuff. And that it's haters of, I wouldn't have even known. If Navi and Oracle weren't bashing Maxine, falsely accusing her of wanting to excommunicate trans people, saying that Sharon Day and Maxine Sanders are my minions and Brian's minions, which is just really, that would be like calling Lori Cabot my minion. No. Saying I send kiddie porn in email. So yeah, I was like, oh, what's this happening? Let me go start digging. Had I not started digging, I wouldn't know any of this. So I'll have you. So the next time you go thinking, you know what, I'm going to try to trip Christian up and I'm going to try to go through his house with a white glove. Let's see what we can find. Just know I'll probably find a lot more. And I did. So I hope you're all thinking, I know the Amarella Moon. I mean, I have these visions of Amarella Moon and I in the same nursing home. At like 90, and she's screaming from the other room, he wished rape on me. He doxed me. If she outlives me, she'll be chiseling it on my tombstone. And I'm not sure Sean Wild's ever going to stop either, but whatever, that's on them. It ain't going to make any difference to me. It's not going to change my life. It just makes them look like they don't have anything else to do. Right. But this. No, we have to take a stand in this. And look, I may not be with my niece who say, the people, pedophiles should be shot and killed. I don't believe in the death penalty. So I just don't. Nothing to do with pedophiles. I don't think the government will ever get it right all the time. So even in that movie Minority Report, I mean, I know it's fiction, but they showed how the psychics could see the future and that's how they knew you were guilty. And even that system was gamed. I don't trust government. I don't for that. And, do I think there's a point? How about this? Give convicted pedophiles that have been released, give them jobs at credit card collection agencies. Because we all hate those people anyway. And I know sometimes I know I've yelled at them, I haven't owed on credit in many years, but when I was young and, they would keep calling about the student loan, and I finally called them every name in the book, and then I sort of feel bad. Okay, so give pedophiles the job of collection agency, because none of us like them anyway. So then at least you'll feel good that it was okay to yell at the credit card collection caller, because they might be a pedophile. But I'd rather that than the state pay for them. But I do not think, even if they only put him as a phone reader at Raven's Oasis in what is it, Cocoa, Florida. I love how they said that was doxing too. Oh, it's doxing if you put the store. It's not doxing if you put the store. It's a public fucking store.
I was going to say, well, not only that, if that was where he was employed, the parole record will show that, because they have to report their employment.
Well, even if he was under the table, which I'm guessing is probably the case, when they finally took him off the site completely, I thought, did they cave that easily, or is there something else? Like, was he there under the table and wasn't reported to the parole? Because I did, by the way, contact the Department of Corrections and the Department of Law Enforcement and some county sheriff's office. I contacted them. So if he was there under the table and listed on that site, now they're dealing with tax problems on top of everything else. But here's my solid opinion. There is enough said about gays, trans, and witches. They should not, somebody did say, well, he couldn't get a job somewhere else because he's forced to tell everybody and no one would hire him. Well, you know what? Then go on disability. Say you have anxiety and fibromyalgia and start collecting a cuckoo check for all I care. But at the end of the day, you're not working in a fucking witch shop. And if I find out that another witch shop is hiring one of these pedophiles, I'm going to be, and even if it's a friend, if you're a friend of mine and you hired a pedophile in your witch shop, I'll give you the grace of a phone call warning before I unleash that kraken, but I will unleash it. I will not allow our religion. The fact that he made this person a priest of Alexandrian craft, you have any idea how upset I am about that? Like, he also brought this man into my fucking religious circles. Well, not directly, but how dare you bring him into the craft? How dare you? And how dare you associate this person with witch? No, you know what? You can call me a bully. You can say whatever you want. I won't lose a moment's sleep over it, because as big of a cunt as I know I am, I have more integrity in this fucking fingernail than most of these people have in their whole fucking bodies. With what I've seen today, just these people. So, telling a little kid that, if you have sex with me, your parents will come back from the dead. Like, what kind of fucking, you got a problem with, I said something mean to somebody once, and you're going to hold my feet to the fire for fucking 24 years. And these people get a pass. Oh, Jim Ozpagan's all upset about something I said about Gaza, but he wants to bring a fucking kitty diddler back into the fold. Fuck you. And the horse you rode in on. I don't care what you think. When have I ever really? You know what I mean? I think that's what drives them the most crazy, is they want me to care. They want me to feel some sort of remorse. And I don't. I mean, yeah, I don't think I should have said what I said about Gaza necessarily, but I won't apologize for it, because I know if somebody trolled the Auschwitz Museum again and started making negative comments about Anne Frank or whatever the fuck, I just know me. I know I'm going to come in. I'm going to say something as nasty. I just know me. I will not be able to resist it. If somebody trolls the Auschwitz Museum, I will say something mean again, which is why I won't apologize. If I shouldn't have maybe invoked rape in a statement, I will apologize. And I did apologize. And 24 years ago with the prank call thing, I did my 24 hours of community service, and I wore that little red vest or orange vest, and I was picking up trash with a stick in nearby Lynn, Massachusetts. Look, whatever. There are no secrets here. There's nothing you can hang on me, because all of my skeletons are on the clothesline. Why do you think I'm so fucking brazen? Because everything that's real has already been said. And I'm still here. Yeah, there's lots of people who don't like me. I don't care that much as long as I get what I want, and I got what I wanted. Luis Valadez is Oracle Hecateos is no longer a moderator on the BTW Discord, and I have multiple people that aren't even on my friends list sending me screenshots of what goes on in there. Lest people think they don't understand that part of my celebrity is that it does allow me to break into spaces that most people can't get into. And frankly, I don't even think it's a matter of my celebrity in this case. I think it's a matter of people don't think children should be getting abused. So there's people that don't even like me sending me information going, I don't agree with these people, you know. And the guy was let go from the store. And apparently they're talking about suing me now. They're going to find one motherfucking judge in all of Florida, Louisiana that's going to care about you and your fucking kitty diddler. Sorry. But anyway, we started late, so we went a little bit late. And everyone in Brevard hates him. Who? Oracle or I don't know who Lai Shu is. You know, they all got interesting names. That's the only thing about Facebook streaming I like is it has the real names.
Right, with YouTube, I don't know who.
But anyway, well, I don't know how we're going to top this next week. Yeah,
but I appreciate everyone who tuned in and chimed in on this because, as we've said before, Christian and I want to have fun with the show, and you know, it was all about you know, being snarky and goofing around, but there are going to be times that we have serious subjects to talk about, and this is very serious. And again, I bounce this back to the community of let's take a look at everything, guys, and let's start policing ourselves a little better and protecting our children. We want our children to be involved in our religion. We want our children to be raised in our communities. Well, let's not make them vulnerable and put them at risk.
Well, I want to know if he ends up at one of these like Florida pagan gatherings. I know they have Oracle speak there, which is bad enough, you know, because if somebody has no problem with a child molester, I'm not saying that makes them a child molester, but you know what I'm saying? I don't know. Like if I had an event kids were at, I don't think I would have Oracle Hecateos there simply because he defended somebody doing that as restorative justice. I think I would not have him there. But if they have Eddie Massey at that thing, you know, they deserve everything they get. So anyway, you know, just Joanne said, thank you for being a voice for abused children. I actually was an abused child, but not sexually.
I was abused as well, not sexually.
Yeah, I was physically abused.
Yeah.
You know, and the priest never wanted me, so, you know. I didn't have an uncle with candy. You know, I think I must have been an ugly child. I don't know. But no, it wasn't. There was a lot of abuse, but it was physical abuse. But just the same, none of it's acceptable, but especially that. You can't give that child back their innocence.
No.
You can't give that child back their sense of safety. So how dare you say first of all, I don't virtue signal shit. Even in this show, I fucking took fucking glee at the enemies fucking falling. I do think I have a measure of nobility, but I certainly don't think that I come across as this virtue signaling noble person. I mean, give me a break. I'm basically the Howard Stern of witchcraft. But at the same time, over my fucking dead body, will you associate witchcraft with pedophilia, physical abuse, racism, any of that? I won't allow it, and I have the power to say it. And if you know, however the gods gave me this power, I have this power, and I'm going to use it. It's that simple. Anyway, have a good night. I will see you all next week.
Thank you.
Enjoy the Motel 6.
It's a